You don't deserve that penthouse anyway. Hand the keys over now. Her voice rang across the decorated ballroom, louder than the music, sharper than the champagne glasses clinking around us. 50 heads turned, eyes locking on me like I was an uninvited guest at my own brother's wedding. The world froze for a second. My pulse thundered in my ears. My mom's palm collided with my cheek so hard that my earring flew off, spinning across the marble floor. Gasps filled the air mixed with whispers. Did she just? In front of everyone? Hi everyone. My name is Camille Rivers, I'm 29. And if you think family loyalty runs deeper than humiliation, let me show you what betrayal really looks like. Tell me what's heavier, silence or shame? The lights above glittered like a mockery. My brother kept smiling stiffly, pretending the cake, the flowers, the laughter mattered more than the sting still burning across my skin. I wanted to scream, to fight, but instead I straightened my back. I would not give her the spectacle she wanted. I bent down, picked up the earring, slid it back in, and walked away from the stunned guests who parted like I carried fire. Each step toward the exit echoed louder than the music I left behind. My heels hit the floor like punctuation marks. Enough. 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 Outside, the night air bit my skin. My phone trembled in my hand, not from cold, but from rage that demanded action. I made a single call, my voice steady, words measured. Because revenge does not rise with shouts, it whispers like a secret. An hour later, a black car pulled up in front of the reception hall. The man who stepped out wasn't just anyone. When my mother spotted him through the glass doors, her face drained of color, her hands shook, and then she screamed. And that was only the beginning. Her scream cut through the reception like broken glass. Shrill, panicked, unrestrained. Guests turned toward the glass doors, their chatter dying mid-sentence. The man stepped into the light, tall, composed, his tailored suit carrying a weight no one could mistake. He wasn't family, he wasn't friend, he was a storm wearing polished shoes. My mother's face twisted, her lipstick trembling against her teeth. What is he doing here? She spat, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. My brother froze at the altar, his bride clutching his arm, clueless yet terrified. The music stuttered, then stopped. I didn't move. I wanted every eye on me, every whisper stitched into memory. They had humiliated me under chandeliers and roses. I would answer in kind. The man's eyes found mine. He nodded once, respectful, before turning his gaze toward my mother. We need to talk, he said, voice low but carrying enough steel to silence the room. Mom staggered back like the marble floor beneath her had cracked. Not here. Not tonight. Too late, he replied. Gasps rippled through the hall. Guests leaned closer like moths drawn to a flame. My mother had spent years perfecting her image, queen of composure, patron saint of appearances. No. She was unraveling thread by trembling thread. I watched her hands fidget with the pearls at her neck, her breath coming fast. She was remembering things, documents she signed, lies she told, debts she buried deep enough to choke a family. She had gambled on silence. But silence was mine to break tonight. The man slipped a folder onto the nearest table, thick enough to groan under its weight. My mother's eyes widened, her painted nails clutching air. You wouldn't, she whispered. But I only tilted my head, lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. The music wouldn't play again, the wedding vows would hang unfinished. Every guest here would walk away not with memories of cake and champagne, but with the story of how my mother's empire cracked wide open at her son's wedding. And that story had just begun. My mother lunged forward, fingers trembling as she tried to snatch the folder, but the man's hand pressed down, steady, immovable. Gasps erupted again, a chorus of disbelief circling the hall like smoke. The bride's mother tugged her daughter closer, whispering in her ear. My brother's jaw clenched. He didn't move, didn't speak, as though he suddenly realized this wedding wasn't his anymore. The man's voice cut through the suffocating silence. Every number, every signature, every property transfer, documented. Right here. His tone wasn't loud, but it carried authority like a gavel in court. I could feel the weight of 50 pairs of eyes pinning me, measuring me against the woman who had just slapped me. For the first time in my life, their gazes didn't feel pitying. They felt sharp, questioning. Who was I really if I could summon him? My mother's knees buckled slightly, her hand clutching the back of a chair for support. Her pearl bracelet slipped down her wrist with a faint clink, like the sound of chains breaking. Camille, she hissed, her voice strangled. You don't know what you're doing. But I did. Oh, I knew exactly what I was doing. For years I'd swallowed the bitterness of being her shadow puppet, used, displayed, silenced. Tonight I cut the strings. I stepped forward, closer to her, my heels echoing against the marble. You wanted the keys to my penthouse, Mom? My voice didn't waver. Maybe you should explain to your guests how you plan to pay for it with money that was never yours to spend. The crowd erupted into whispers again, like 1,000 bees stirred from a hive. My brother took one hesitant step toward me, but the bride pulled him back, fear widening her eyes. And then the man opened the folder. Pages spilled like truth set free. Numbers. Bank transfers. Signatures. The sound of paper sliding across linen-covered tables was louder than any orchestra. My mother's mask cracked completely, her breath came shallow, her hands shook. For the first time, the woman who commanded every room with a glance looked small. And I realized something then. The slap had left a sting on my cheek, but tonight, it was her legacy that was burning. The hall felt colder now, the chandeliers casting crueler light as the papers lay exposed across white linen. Guests leaned forward, hungry, as if they were flipping through scandal itself. My mother's carefully curated empire, her charities, her polished interviews, her perfect family image, was bleeding ink in front of them. She reached out, her hands clawing toward the documents, but the man blocked her once more, calm, deliberate. His composure only made her look more frantic. "Stop this," she barked, but her voice cracked halfway, betraying the tremor in her chest. I crossed my arms, steady as stone. "You wanted to strip me of dignity in front of them," I said softly, but the words carried. "Now let them see the whole truth. All of it." The whispers thickened, a low storm rolling through the room. I caught fragments. Embezzlement, her own daughter. Did she slap her? My brother stood pale, his tie crooked, sweat forming at his temples. His bride's lips were pressed tight, eyes darting between me and my mother, as though she were reconsidering every vow she'd just spoken. Mom slammed her fist against the table, the sound jarring. "You don't understand, Camille," she screamed. "This isn't just about me, it's about this family. About your brother." That word, family, burned on my tongue. I let out a laugh, sharp and bitter. "Family? You made sure I knew exactly where I stood. You didn't just slap me tonight, Mom. You've been slapping me down my whole life, demanding I give, demanding I bow. But tonight I don't bow anymore." Her eyes glistened, not with sorrow but with fury. She looked like a queen watching her crown tumble into fire. The man slid one page forward, pointing at the bold header, "Property Fraud Investigation." Gasps broke the last remnants of order. My mother froze, her face drained to marble. I leaned closer, my words like ice against her ear. "The slap hurt, Mom, but the silence after will destroy you." And in that silence 50 witnesses sat, watching the woman who once ruled every room realize that tonight her kingdom had no walls left. Her lips trembled, painted red against a face suddenly colorless. The word fraud seemed to hover above the table like smoke, impossible to wave away. I could see it sinking into the crowd, neighbors, colleagues, even distant relatives, all of them devouring the scene, already rehearsing how they'd retell it tomorrow. My brother finally broke the stillness. "Mom, is this true?" His voice was raw, thin with disbelief. She spun toward him, desperate. "Don't you dare question me, not today. Not on your wedding day." Her hand shot out as if to grab him, but he pulled back, a flicker of shame crossing his face as he realized the guests were watching every move. The man, calm as ever, folded his hands. "Everything is in writing. Every diversion of funds. Every property in someone else's name. Including the penthouse you tried to seize tonight." I stood taller. The sting of her slap still burned, but it had transformed into a strange, fierce clarity. "You wanted to humiliate me, Mom. But the truth? It humiliates you." The bride's father cleared his throat, breaking the thick air. "We don't tolerate scandals," he muttered almost to himself but loud enough for everyone to hear. His daughter, the bride, looked at him with wide eyes, realizing her new family wasn't gilded at all, but rotting beneath the gold. My mother's breathing grew shallow, her pearl necklace rising and falling rapidly. "Camille," she whispered, her voice breaking like glass underfoot. "You'll regret this. You've ruined everything. I tilted my head, letting the silence stretch, letting her words sink into the crowded hall. No, Mom, I said quietly, so the room had to lean in to catch it. You ruined everything the moment you chose image over blood. The whispers now were no longer whispers. They were judgments. Murmurs of lawyers, scandals, even prison. My mother swayed as if the weight of them all pressed against her chest. And then the man closed the folder with a single sharp snap. Consider this your notice, he said. The next time we meet, it won't be at a wedding, it'll be in court. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's empire hadn't just cracked. It had collapsed in front of 50 witnesses, and I hadn't raised a hand. But inside me, a thought burned brighter than the chandeliers above. This was only the first strike. The wedding no longer felt like a celebration. It felt like a courtroom. The scent of roses and champagne had soured into fear, judgment, and shame. My brother stood frozen, his bride trembling beside him, her bouquet drooping as petals scattered like broken promises onto the floor. He tried to steady his voice, but it cracked. Tell me this isn't real, Mom. Tell me Camille is lying. Her hands shook as she reached for him, pleading eyes searching for loyalty she no longer deserved. I did everything for you. For this family. You think your little sister understands sacrifice? She knows nothing about carrying weight. But her words rang hollow. Guests leaned back in their chairs, arms folded, eyes narrowed. No one defended her. No one rushed to soothe. The queen was alone, crown shattered. I turned toward my brother, meeting his eyes for the first time that night. She's not protecting you, I said quietly. She's protecting herself. And if you don't see it now, you'll drown with her. His throat bobbed, his Adam's apple rising like he was swallowing rocks. For a moment I thought he might lash out at me. But then his bride stepped forward, her voice trembling yet steady. I can't marry into this. She ripped the veil from her head, let it fall to the floor like discarded innocence, and fled through the open doors, sobbing into her father's arms. Gasps cut through the room again. My brother staggered back as though struck, staring at the veil on the ground, his future unraveling thread by thread. My mother lunged toward him. No, don't let her go. We can fix this, we can. But he shoved her hand away. The gesture was small, but it thundered through the hall louder than the music ever had. His rejection, her disgrace. It was all there, raw, undeniable. I watched her stumble, watched her pearls finally snap and scatter across the marble, white beads rolling in every direction like the pieces of her crumbling legacy. And in that glittering mess I felt no guilt, no regret. Just a quiet, unshakable truth rising inside me. Her reign was ending, and I was the one who had struck the match. The ballroom had become a graveyard of whispers. The music never returned, the laughter long extinguished. Instead, 50 guests sat trapped in a silence that felt heavier than stone. The bride was gone, her veil abandoned on the marble like a ghost of promises never kept. My brother stood hollow-eyed, staring at the ruins of his perfect day, while my mother clutched at him with hands that shook too much to hold on. Please, she begged, voice frayed, her once commanding tone reduced to a rasp. You can't walk away from me. I built everything for you. I sacrificed everything. But he didn't look at her. His gaze drifted to me, piercing, searching, wounded. For a moment, I almost saw the brother I grew up with before our mother's shadow swallowed us both. He opened his mouth, but no words came. None could survive in this wreckage. The man who had brought the folder gave me a curt nod, his job done. He didn't need to stay. Truth was already doing the work. With the documents out in the open, my mother's empire wasn't just cracked, it was condemned. I took a slow breath, feeling the sting of my cheek one last time. That slap had started the unraveling, but it was no longer pain I carried. It was power. I turned to leave, heels echoing through the hushed hall. Each step was a declaration. I didn't belong in their broken kingdom anymore. My mother's scream followed me, high and raw, shattering the last illusion of control she had left. Camille, don't you dare walk out that door. I paused at the threshold, the cool night air spilling in from outside. For the first time in years I felt the weight slide off my shoulders. I didn't turn back. My voice, low but steady, cut across the silence. I'm not walking away, Mom. I'm walking free. And as the doors closed behind me, I knew their world would never recover. But mine was only beginning. The night air outside was crisp, cleaner than anything I had breathed inside that hall of lies. My heels tapped against the pavement as I walked toward the black car still waiting at the curb. The man who had carried the folder of truth opened the door for me, no words exchanged. We didn't need them. The silence between us was victory enough. Inside, the city stretched ahead, lights flickering like stars that had finally decided to shine for me. For once, I wasn't the daughter begging for scraps of approval. I wasn't the sister living in someone else's shadow. I was Camille Rivers, and my story was no longer theirs to control. In the weeks that followed, the fallout spread like wildfire. My mother's charities pulled sponsorships, her name erased from glossy magazines that once praised her perfect family. Lawyers circled her like vultures, each headline sharper than the slap she'd delivered that night. My brother withdrew into silence, haunted by a wedding that became a cautionary tale. Guests whispered for months, retelling the story of the mother who slapped her daughter, and the daughter who answered with truth. Me. I moved into my penthouse with no guilt, no hesitation. Each room felt different now, no longer heavy with fear but alive with freedom. Sometimes I'd stand at the window, glass of wine in hand, watching the city pulse below me. I didn't need their approval, their twisted version of family. I had my own reflection, my own power, my own peace. One evening I found that earring, the same one that had flown off from her slap. It lay on the marble floor where I'd first dropped it, glinting like a reminder. I picked it up, held it to the light and smiled. What once symbolized humiliation now gleamed as proof. I had taken the blow, and risen higher. Poetic justice didn't come in flames or fury. It came in silence, in distance, in letting her choke on the ruins she built with her own hands. And as I watered the plants by my window, sunlight spilling across my skin, I whispered to myself the truth I had earned. Some battles aren't won by shouting. Some are won by walking away, stronger, freer, untouchable.